Today on Ag Etc., Philip Lobo with United Soybean Board talks about the uses and advantages of using soybean meal that increase domestic demand, lower farm bases, and make exports more efficient. Next, our own Brityne Rucker is with Candice Wilson with the U.S. Grains Council. She reveals the fastest growing export commodity trending for the next 5 and 10 years. Find out what it is. Then Brityne talks with Patti Dollarhide with the Beef Cattle Institute about how important protein is in your diet. Then meet Shyanne Jones from Colby Community College, one of our young leaders in ag, and find out how beef producers are fulfilling the wants and needs of consumers through labeling and traceability. It's all coming up on Ag Etc. Stay tuned.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.
Kansas Farm Bureau has served farm families and rural Kansas for more than 100 years, and we're pleased to offer new healthcare coverage choices for Kansans in 2020 through Kansas Farm Bureau health plans. No matter what stage of life you're in, we'll have options that fit your lifestyle. Plus, our network of providers is one of the largest available throughout the state of Kansas and beyond. For more information, including the different plans available, or to get a quote, visit kfbhealthplans.com.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
This segment brought to you by Sure Crop, liquid crop nutrition delivered right to your farm.
I'm Philip Lobo. I'm Director of Feed Utilization for the United Soybean Board, actually working for Smith Buckland as a full-time contract employee of United Soybean Board. Director of Feed Utilization makes me responsible for domestic soybean meal consumption by animals. Domestic soybean meal consumption is a great thing because really what we have is a market that we have an over 98% market share in. And we're a low-cost producer of pork and poultry, especially around the world. We're probably in the top, 2 or 3 low-cost producers. So we're always going to, every bit of feed we can get into those animals, can then go to export very efficiently. And that just grows our domestic demand, which lowers basis for farmers here in the U.S. So, you got a better basis for your beans, and that's a good thing. In our domestic markets, poultry is about 65% of domestic soybean meal consumption, and the inclusion rates on those poultry diets for soybean meal continues to increase. So we're seeing a great deal of opportunity there. We have seen a great deal of opportunity over the past 7 or 8 years, and we're starting to focus more on swine diets and proving the value of soybean meal in pig diets. We've done some work with Bob Goodband at Kansas State University this past year that proved that soybean meal's energy value in piglet diets was significantly under-recognized. So we're thinking that there might be some opportunity to show soybean value in finisher diets this next year that's going to be really important in driving our inclusion rates in swine diets moving forward. Here, we're not really using the whole bean. I mean, we're 80% of the volume of the bean. The other 20% is oil. And that oil is used for things like in human food, salad dressings and frying oils. And then, of course, for biodiesel and industrial uses, things like plastics and tires and other things like that. Soybean meal consumption, it's 98% of it is by animals, and that's about 36.2 million tons according to USDA. And that's risen steadily over the last few years. It was 33 million tons back in 15-16. So, over the space of 4 years, it's increased, by more than 3 million tons. So that's a pretty solid gain for a market that a lot of people have considered mature, and we're interested in, showing more growth in the future. Number one is animal nutrition research, and because animal nutrition is a numbers business, and you've got to prove the value of your product, or you're going to kind of fall behind, and you have to do it over and over again in new and innovative ways. So that energy work that I discussed previously is really important, and proving soybean meal sustainability in diets is going to be more and more important moving forward. Just showing how a diet higher in soybean meal is more sustainable than diets including mid-proteins and supplemented with synthetic amino acids is really, really important, because the consumer nowadays is becoming a lot more concerned about the sustainability of what they're eating.
Kansas Farm Bureau has served farm families in rural Kansas for more than 100 years. We're pleased to offer new healthcare coverage choices for Kansans in 2020 through Kansas Farm Bureau Health Plans. No matter what stage of life you're in, we'll have options that fit your lifestyle. Plus, our network of providers is one of the largest available throughout the state of Kansas and beyond. For more information, including the different plans available, or to get a quote, visit kfbhealthplans.com.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
I'm Brityne Rucker, and this is Ag AM in Kansas. I am at the 2020 Corn-Fed Ethanol Seminar, and with me now I have Candice Wilson, on the U.S. Grain Council, Manager of Ethanol Trade Policy. Now, Candice, you talked about how ethanol is the growing fastest commodity.
Yeah, so our chief economist, Mike Dwyer, and myself conducted an analysis to analyze of all of the commodities that USDA tracks from an export standpoint, which was the fastest, and that we found on both a 5 and 10-year scale, ethanol was the fastest growing commodity and kind of had really the most potential to grow in regards to the other products.
And actually, ethanol is the cheapest source of octane over the last decade.
Yeah, so when you're looking from a perspective of how a country can kind of oxygenate its fuel and meet requirements in that regard, ethanol is the cheapest typically on a gallon for gallon standpoint as well as a point for point standpoint. So we definitely think that we have a solid message in regards to why they should be blending ethanol into their fuel supply.
And bioethanol actually not only improves air quality but also greenhouse gas emissions.
Yeah, so going back to its high octane rating, when you have a higher octane rating, it means that your fuel is combusting more cleanly, and as a result of that you typically see improved air quality in countries that are blending ethanol. If you look at a picture, for instance, from Beijing or from New Delhi, countries that don't have E10 in their fuel supply, the air quality is typically pretty poor. And that's something that we think that we have a strong selling message when we go to those countries in order for them to improve their air quality, reduce cancer-related deaths from that air quality. And in regards to your comment about emissions, the USDA conducted a study that found that U.S. ethanol is 39% less greenhouse gas intensive than gasoline. So as countries are looking to kind of reduce their greenhouse gas emissions and footprint and meet their Paris commitments, we think that ethanol has an opportunity to help them do that.
And I'm sure with your studies from other countries and even in the U.S., there's some dispelling myths about ethanol.
Absolutely. So I think if you look at the experience of implementing the renewable fuel standard here in the United States, there were a lot of, questions or concerns that were perpetrated by people unfamiliar with ethanol or the oil industry. One of those, and probably the most famous everyone has heard of, is food versus fuel, right? So you're taking food that is meant for a human and instead you're burning it in a vehicle. We know that's simply not the case. With the yield advancements that we've seen in global coarse grains production, ethanol only accounts for about 5% of total production of corn, sorghum, etc. The rest goes to feeding animals or to feeding humans. And so when we talk about this messaging overseas, we want people to understand that it's not food versus fuel, it's food and fuel.
Now, you've done some case studies in different countries involving ethanol.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, can you go into those in those specific countries?
Well, I think that one that's kind of been a really big success story for our industry has been Japan. The U.S. Grains Council had a very prominent effort there, working with our stakeholders with the Foreign Ag Service of USDA, Growth and RFA, and the corn states that have helped provide funding there. We've able to obtain 44% market share of the ethanol that goes into ETBE production, which is about 91 million gallons of ethanol. Moving forward, we hope to increase that even more by getting them to blend E10 eventually, and we just want to see increased global ethanol demand.
So going right into that, where do we go from here as an industry involving ethanol?
Well, I think from the international standpoint, we're really wanting to get over that 7 to 10% threshold of ethanol that's exported every year. We see huge potential in countries like China and Indonesia, and even in Brazil, which is currently our largest customer. And we think that if we can build a strong coalition of countries that support ethanol use, we can have the mentality that rising tide lifts all boats, and we'll be able to increase our exports and increase our market share of exports of ethanol globally as well.
Right, very good. Well, a big thank you to Candice Wilson with the U.S. Grain Council. I'm Brityne Rucker, and this has been Ag AM in Kansas.
Sure Crop Fertilizers was started by my father, Don Sherman, and my mother, Shirley Sherman. Family business that started in the 80s. We predominantly focus on plant nutrients and what we can do to give growers better responses with the fertilizer dollars that they do, and what we can do to make those things work better for that grower. We're based out of Seneca, Kansas. We work with growers in their soil analysis to figure out what they need, and then we can put those in a blend that gives them the best results, and so that we can deliver that direct to their farm so that they have those nutrients where they need them, when they need them, and so that they can apply them in a manner that's very efficient to them and works well on their planting systems and what they're doing. Sure Crop Fertilizers has been around for a long time. We always say we're big enough to take care of everything you need, but we're small enough to do it quickly. You can get a hold of us at 1-800-635-4743. Our website is surecropfertilizers.com, and you can always email me at Corey@surecropfertilizers.com, and with any questions you have, we'll be glad to answer and work with you.
Highways 40, 83, and I-70 come together right here in Oakley. Roads that lead to businesses, to magnificent rock formations, to scenic vistas, to places where legends were made. Roads that lead us home. Discover Oakley, the gateway to western Kansas.
Kansas Corn reminds you that E15 fuel is the right choice for every kind of driver. For the car enthusiast, E15 has higher octane. For the thrifty driver, E15 is priced lower than regular unleaded. For the nature lover, E15 provides cleaner air. For the shopper who buys local, E15 has more ethanol from our Kansas corn farms. Choose E15 for a higher octane, lower price, cleaner American fuel. Message from the Kansas Corn Commission. Learn more at kscorn.com.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Corn. Learn more at kscorn.com.
I'm Brityne Rucker, and this is Ag AM in Kansas. I'm at the 2020 Women Managing the Farm Conference, and with me now is Patti Dollarhide. And Patti, you covered the topic, can we eat our way out of climate change? Patti, give us a little overview of your presentation you did today.
Yes, I wanted to focus on just one piece of sustainability. There's so many things we can talk about when we talk about beef production and some of the things that are in the news these days about cattle, and should we eliminate them from our diet? Should we include them? What should we do differently? And a lot of times there's trade-offs depending on what your values are. And so today we just picked out a couple of those, and we talked about climate change because that's been in the news a lot lately, as well as protein. And I'm a dietitian by trade, and so people's eating habits are real important to me. And as we start doing big, grandiose changes, it makes me a little bit nervous based on some of the things that we've done over the years since I've been a dietitian.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of research recently come out about the benefit of having beef in your diet.
Right. Beef is really a powerhouse when it comes to nutrition. You can get so much in just a small amount of calories. And when you look at how people eat today compared to even 40 years ago, we're eating about 600 calories more a day in the United States, which has had some repercussions.
Right.
But we're not really overeating protein. And so we still need the really high quality protein, but we don't need a lot of calories to go with it.
And there is this misnomer that Americans eat too much protein, too much meat.
There really is, and when you think about what is it that we really need for protein, I know that I'm getting older, and I think I need more protein now than I did maybe a few years ago if I want to keep my muscle mass and keep it so that I can still put my clothes on every day and get out of a chair.
Right.
And so we need probably more protein. And do we need to eat the way we did before? But maybe not, but we need to maybe split it out between different meals. And I'm not saying we need to eat a 10-ounce steak every meal, but how can we have a balanced diet?
Now, Patti, I'm sure a lot of people are curious about plant-based cellular meat that's new and coming out. What are your thoughts about those?
Well, they are definitely coming out. There's a lot of innovation going on in that space. And I think it's just kind of a different way to market some things that have been around for a long time. We've had vegetarian burgers, we've had bean burgers. You know, what's different this time? I think that the marketers are going at it from a climate discussion, and it's gotten a lot of attention. You know, there's going to be a lot more people in the world, as we know. By the year 2050, we're going to need to increase production. I think it's going to be one of the options. I'm not sure that it's going to take away. We're going to replace beef.
But there are some big players that's in that game.
Right, there are, and they're ag players also.
Yes.
So again, they're looking at it from a potential. So where is the market going? Is it growing? It absolutely is growing. But so is beef consumption, and so are the exports that we're all working towards. And so again, I think that maybe all the producers get a little nervous when they hear that. But from a dietitian standpoint, knowing that what the world needs, and that people are always trying to get high quality protein to have a balanced diet, I think that there's room for all of us.
Exactly. Well, a big thank you to Patti Dollarhide from Kansas State University for speaking at the 2020 Women Managing the Farm Conference. I'm Brityne Rucker, and this is Ag AM in Kansas.
What if U.S. soybean meal were more than a commodity? If seed companies and the soybean checkoff built a better variety? That future is here. The time is now. To meet end-user demands, the soybean checkoff is investing in the compositional quality of soybeans, including meal. A message from the Kansas Soybean Commission, the Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
Okay, looks like it's time for our tour. Welcome to the Fort Wallace Museum. Here at the museum, you're going to find some really interesting stuff like our replica stagecoach from the Butterfield Overland Dispatch. We've got facades from the fort buildings. We've got an 1870s flag. There's a plesiosaur that was discovered locally. We've got the Ray pump organ collection. We're a little bitty place with a great big story, and we'd love to have you.
This segment brought to you by Farm Credit Associations of Kansas, lending support to rural America, and by American Ag Service, your DuPont Pioneer dealer.
I'm Brityne Rucker, and this is Ag AM in Kansas. We are back with our Young Leaders in Ag segment, and with me now I have Shyanne Jones. How did you get involved in the industry? What is your background?
Yeah, so I grew up on our family farm in Mount Valley, Kansas. My great-great-grandparents bought the farm in 1950, and so they've had it running ever since. We do row crops, and we have an Angus cattle production. We do cow-calf pairs and sell them after 90 days of weaning. So that's how I got my start in the industry, watching my grandpa and my dad work on the farm. And then as I grew older, I kind of grew into more things on the farm and more responsibilities. So.
And you are in college right now. How did you choose which college to attend?
Yeah, so I'm at Colby Community College right now. I'm a second year there. Colby Community is really amazing. They have a fantastic agriculture program. They have a 60-acre offside of campus, so that's really nice to be able to go out there and work with the cattle. In addition to the horse unit, I'm riding on the equestrian team out there, so that's a really good program as well. But we get to be hands-on with the cattle. We put on a production bull sale every year, so that's what we're working on right now. We have 50 head on trial, so that's really cool to be able to see the process of picturing the bulls and videoing the bulls and doing all of the things to get them ready for the sale and putting them on a feed test. So that's kind of how I chose the program, because it is really hands-on and I get to do a lot of the things that are going to prepare me in the future.
Yeah.
So.
And you are actually dual majoring.
Yes. So my other major is ag education. So hopefully once I get done at Colby Community College, I can move on to K-State next year to finish that degree. So my background at Colby with all of this hands-on stuff will hopefully help me to teach other kids about it in the future, because I have that experience to speak from and say, this is how I learned it, this is kind of how it is. So hopefully that will help me, and as I move forward, I can go to a high school somewhere and help people learn who wouldn't normally have the opportunity to learn about ag. So that's the hope for the future, is to help people learn about agriculture.
And you really haven't had any traditional internships per se?
I haven't, no. So my high school did start kind of an internship program, but I went to one at our local co-op, and then I actually ended up taking a job there. So I started out in the front counter, and we just learned basically how to run the computers and the scales. And so now I've worked my way up, and they trust me with a little bit more complicated of the computer stuff as I'm learning and I get more comfortable with it. They say, do you want to try this? So I get to work with the customers and help them with their rations. I take their feed orders and do things like that. So
really real world experiences.
Yes, absolutely.
And really, Shyanne, last question, and a loaded question. Where do you see yourself in the ag industry?
So hopefully I can teach people about it. My dream would be to move somewhere or to start a FFA chapter. That's kind of really what I want to do, is help start FFA chapters, because I think every kid should have the opportunity to learn about where their food comes from and where their clothing comes from. So that's my dream, is to just help start FFA chapters. So
yeah, very good. Well, a big thank you to Shyanne Jones for being on the Young Leaders in Ag segment. I'm Brityne Rucker, and this is Ag AM in Kansas.
At Farm Credit, we partner with America's farmers who work hard each and every day to grow the food that we all enjoy. It's not an easy task, but it's an important one. Farm Credit is proud to work with farmers and ranchers, lending support in rural America.
Welcome to the Western Kansas Wildlife Travel Center, right here in my hometown of Oakley, Kansas. We're the front door of Western Kansas, located on 3 main highways, I-70, US 83, and US 40. And all those roads lead to history, beautiful scenery, and adventure, no matter which direction you go. We now have an IHOP. That brand that you've trusted up and down the road in all your travels is staffed with local folks, real people just like you and me, and we're waiting on you to join us. So for fun, adventure, fuel up, fuel your body, and let's have some fun.
The Kansas Wheat Innovation Center in Manhattan is rediscovering ways to get improved varieties and new genetics in the hands of farmers faster. Grower-led and checkoff-funded research initiatives are bringing about positive change. This grassroots leadership provides a strong voice in Topeka and Washington, D.C. Now is the time to partner with Kansas Wheat in moving wheat forward. Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. Farmers investing in their future and yours. Log on to rediscoverwheat.org.
This segment brought to you by Santa Fe Trail Meats in Overbrook. Let us help feed your family.
Moving from his Nebraska ranch to Washington, D.C. was an eye-opener for Greg Eibach when he saw how much food labeling says to beef consumers.
They want to have some connection to where that producer that grew the food that they're going to eat. They're also hearing messages about climate change and sustainability, and so they want to know how that fits into the way their food was produced. And then they, at the end of the day, food safety is very important to them too.
It's easy for cattlemen to say they're doing a great job on the ranch, but what consumers say counts more.
And so we need to figure out how to listen to them, understand their wants and needs, and then explain to them how we're meeting their wants and needs. Because in most cases, there's producers out there that are doing exactly what that consumer wants, even if that consumer wants something that's highly traceable, antibiotic-free, if they want it to be prime or high choice, there's somebody out there producing it.
While lifestyles have night and day differences, the values shared between consumers and cattlemen are much the same.
They're worried about their children. They want them to be healthy. They want them to grow up and have good jobs. That's what we want for our children too on the ranch. And so we share values, and we just have to make them understand that we're the same people and we're headed the same direction.
Eibach says many ranchers are doing right by consumers, but many more need to be able to prove it.
And so if you're going to make claims about your food or that you're producing on your farm or ranch, you're able to match up with that certifying group that will help take your claims to the consumer. And so that could be somebody that wants to buy something that's fully traceable and that they're willing to pay extra value for because they know it was fed in a certain way.
Delivering the things consumers want now might be what it takes to do business in the future. I'm Bob Cervera.
Watch Ag AM in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com.
I'm Bob Swartz, and I've devoted the last 43 years to helping Kansans reach their retirement goals and to protect the family farm. At Bob Swartz Financial, we believe everyone should be able to live the retirement they've always dreamed of. Our team of professionals can help you create an efficient strategy using a variety of investment vehicles to help you address your financial needs and your concerns. Bob Swartz Financial values commitment and transparency.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.